Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's release meeting for the release from 26th of June. I am Mike, Content Manager here at Fieldcode. Let's jump right in. All right, so the first one we have is Improved Ticket Pool Search Enhancements. So you'll see here right away, we don't have the predefined tab anymore. We just blended in the predefined tab and the general tab into just a general tab. We've also consolidated the buttons here into a nice little drop-down for you. And we added a few pages here to edit queries. Right off, you'll also notice that we have improved the search icons. So they stand out a little more. So it helps you guys understand what's searchable. Versus old style kind of just blended in. You couldn't really tell. So we just made it a little more obvious for you where you can search, where you can't search. And we consolidate, like I said, here. We've also improved the query page. So it's now just a floating popover. It's not its own page. As before, it was its own page, and you had to click the field code icon to get back to workplace. It's no more confusing anymore. You can either hit this button here or hit the close button here to get out and go back to your screen. I also want to point out here that we also include now the predefined queries that we have built for you. These are uneditable and undeletable. So these will always be here for you to view. And if we add more, you'll see them here. You can still create shared queries and edit queries as we introduced last release. All right. Parts workflow. So as you know before, whenever there was parts on tickets and you added a part to a ticket, you had to send that to the FMA app where the engineer could then run through the parts. He could receive them or not receive them, add his usage, add his returns. But that was only possible through the FMA. That is no longer the case. We now include in workflows for the FMA item workflow, where you can now add in buttons for partner portal for the parts and buttons for the workflow for parts. So that means that not just through the FMA, you can now go through the parts workflow from receiving to usage to returning through the partner portal, and receiving, usage, and returning through the ticket details, so through here. So as you see, I just updated my, but once you update the FMA workflow, you're not gonna be able to do the old way for partner portal, for instance, where you have this usage stuff. So once you adjust your workflow, this is the workflow for parts. So in this case, my parts workflow is always gonna have these three options. FMA always works as before, and partner portal and workflow. Obviously, a workflow can be configured however you want, so be careful with that, but we have the buttons available for you to add in the items workflow. So let's see what that looks like here in the workplace. So you'll see here I have part, and now I have the option to receive and not receive. So I simply click on it, opens like a form. You can use custom item forms or your generic basic default item forms. It's up to you. Yeah, so I think I just have the generic ones here. So I hit save. Go here, now the status has been updated to receive, and now I have usage or not received. I could go back to not received, but let's just go to the happy path here. I'm gonna add some usage, and this is a custom form you see here. So I'm just gonna add used and consumed. Let's just add something here, why not? So we're gonna add something here. Tickets updating. Now here I have my usage added here, whatever attachments I added during that form. And now the final step, return. Simply go here. This is also a custom return form. And for some reason I made that mandatory. So we'll just add another file there. And so now the final step of the parts workflow. Now mind you, the ticket workflow hasn't moved. This is just a parts workflow. So now this is sitting in, it's returned now. My usage is there. All my attachments are added. So now the parts workflow is done. Yeah. So this is a separate workflow from your normal ticket workflow. So let's take a look at this in Partner Portal, except we're going to take a look at it through the mobile device. So as you see here in the mobile device now, we have the parts buttons. I have two parts here because I want to show you that each part is in its own workflow. So the same as the scheduled ticket button, you need to fill out the information here first. in order to move ahead. All right, so let's go down here. Say receive. So it's using the same form. Save. You see now these two parts are using the same workflow, but a different instance of the workflow. So each part has its own instance of the workflow. So this part is still in the receive step. This part is in the add usage step. So let's continue through this. Unused, not needed, saved. At this point, I mean, depending on how the FMA or how the engineer works, he can continue. Obviously, it's not connected to the scheduled ticket button. So the workflow here is not connected to this. So they can run through the whole parts thing at any time. So then we'll finish this up. And we'll take a look at that part here. So this part has been returned. All the usage is added, all the attachments are added, and this part is now finished. No more buttons left. You could continue with this here in the workflow or partner portal. As long as the button's available in the workflow, you can use it either through here, the FMA, or partner portal. All right. Cool. On to the next one. Ticket details and X details info messages. You can see right here, we have updated info messages to stand out a little more. So no more big acknowledge button. We just have this big orange button here, or smaller orange button here, which is just the acknowledge button. You just simply click on the check marks. But what's more cool is that we now have the option to have them consolidated. So no more if you have 20 different ticket infos, it's going to be a big blue mess before you get down to the ticket details. You can now close that and look at them later, whatever you want to do with them. But we have the option to hide them or unhide them. And same applies to custom objects as well. So we also have the same options here. Hide. You can acknowledge them, X them out. And once you have one, it just shows the one. Once they're gone, they're gone. All right. Scheduling assistant, time preferences. So time preferences are these here. When you open the schedule assistant, you have the default time preferences for full day from 00 to 00 on that day, or from 9 to 17. We had no way before to add custom ones here. That's no longer the case. You can add now custom time preferences per SLA. And where do you do that? You do that in the SLA profiles. So we've now adjusted these to include business hours as before, but now we have a scheduling assistant time preference area here. So like I said, this is the default from 00 to full day and the 9 to 1700. The first one in the list is always going to be the default one selected. You can change this one if you're creating a new one. You can change this one to whatever you want, and you can add as much as you need. I will go through what I did here for 2 business days. So here I have my default is 08 to 1600 full day, early morning, late morning, afternoon, after hours. You don't have to have labels, but labels obviously look nice. If you hover over, I'll show you that in the workplace. If you hover over, you'll see the time slots there. And this one, I have full day, morning, and just 12 to 1700 with no label. So let's take a look at 2 business day. Open up the scheduling assistant. Right away on today, since today's already late, I only have the one for after hours because that's from 1600 to 22. So I don't have any other time preference possibilities. So it's only showing me the one. If I go to tomorrow, boom, it shows me all of them. Shows me the early morning, shows me the late morning, the afternoon, the after hours, and the full day. And as you see, the full day is selected by default, but as you can select these ones, it'll stay there. And same for the next business day. Since today's already late, it's not going to let me do it. But now here we have morning, and this is without a label. It just shows the time zone. So whatever you want, whatever you fancy, you can have the time showing, or you can have a label showing with the tooltip over it, showing the actual time. All right, moving on. Last month, we introduced the attachment field for forms, and we mentioned that it didn't work for the create form. It worked for every other form, but not the create form, but now it does. So if you add the attachment component to your create form, you'll now, when creating tickets, you'll now be able to add attachments when creating tickets, which I think is pretty awesome, because sometimes maybe you need special instructions from the customer or wherever, so you can add them beforehand, and when the ticket comes to you guys, you can see, hey, we have this attachment. It's not coming through email or any other kind of way. You can send it directly from the ticket, and it'll show up here in ticket details. All right, I'm going to jump over to another tenant here. Audit information. So as you know already, we have different audit information and many pages throughout the admin panel. Who was created by, what date it was created on, who last edited it, and the last time and date it was edited, which is great, but it only shows the last person that did it. And you don't know the history of the editing of this object. So what we have done now, and this is for enterprise customers only, and this is not out of the box. For some enterprise customers, if you want the audit log, you have to request it, support from Fieldcode, and we'll get it activated for you, no problem. As long as you're an enterprise customer, we will do that. So what does that look like? So we have this auto log page now. We click on here and you'll see pretty much every page we have an audit. I think it's 59 different items here. And as we add more pages, we'll obviously add more to the audit log. So this will grow as long as the admin panel grows. So we have 59 different items. The search is working. So let's take a look at an example here. So we're going to take a look at dispatch groups. So see here, it shows you, let's start here. It shows you the dispatch type, dispatch group, shows you the object ID of that, shows you what operation type. There's insert, delete, update, replace. This is a replace, when the last one was done, and who it was done by. And if you open it up, you'll see each time. So on this day, I went on the 27th, and then on the 1st, I looked at it, and you can see the date and time and when it was changed and who did it, which a good practice is just to start at the bottom of this object. And you'll see here, we have 5 entries here and 5 entries here. These are the same entries we have here. So if you leave this left one here on the bottom, that's the, let's say, original one, and you start here on the right, and you start clicking up from the bottom, you'll see every change. So in this case, the IDs change, timestamps change, yeah, but what was more important is the description change. So you can see it change from this description to this description, and another timestamp change. So starting from the right side, I'm going up one more. Ooh, another change happened. I changed the dispatch strategy from fully automated to dispatch strategy manual. This is obviously just me, but if there's multiple people touching this object, you'll see different names and different users who adjusted that. So moving up another one, I changed the area. So I made the area a little bigger, looks like. And then finally, I changed a project. So I changed from mothership integration test to project content, and I changed the time zone from Europe Paris to Europe Amsterdam. Easy peasy. You can take a look through many of these and then see which ones, who affected what. And as I said, there's a bunch of different, we have updates, inserts, and delete as well. All right, let me close that one out here. All right, workflow. Going back to admin panel. So we always had the workflow monitoring here, and we had the ticket nudge here. I already have it entered. But you always go in here, you type in your CNI, and you can see if you're able to nudge this ticket from one step to the next. In this case, I can only nudge it to this one step. You click on this, and you can send ticket to this step. This was already existing. This is what we always had. And this was the path. This ticket is already taken. So you click on this, and you see the path of the ticket, so on and so forth. As you see here, we have this top message here now. This page will soon be discontinued. In the future, use the workflow page to trace and nudge tickets. So let's go there. You'll now see here, this is a new feature, trace. Tracing something, as we are getting more and more customizable with a lot more objects and different IDs, it's getting difficult to see where a certain object is because maybe you're testing multiple workflows and where's that object, which workflow it's in, you can simply go here, type in the ID or number, type in the ID or number. In this case, it's just a ticket. So I'm clicking on ticket and it shows you where that is. This ticket is in basic version 2.0 on node basic intervention wait. You can click directly to that. It'll add it to the search bar here in the validation step, where then you have the new area for the nudge. So we just went over in the workflow monitoring page. This is the new version of it here. So you see the path it has taken. That particular object has reached all these points here in the workflow. And here's the new nudge. If you hold it over here, you can send your object to this step, just like you could in workflow monitoring, but just a little updated here. So everything's done within the workflows page without having to change pages. Another thing to notice that this button is solid orange, but if you see a lighter orange, you're going to see a different message because you're not going to be able to push it to that step and the message will be clear there because behind that button has a form. And since you'll need human interaction, obviously we can't push that object to that step because someone needs to fill out that form. So only the solid orange will you be able to push. The lighter orange, I don't have a good example of that, but the lighter orange ones, you won't be able to push, but it'd be obvious as well. So that's the new nudging and the tracing. Just to look at another example of tracing, I have a custom object here. So number 6, assets. So this is sitting in the assets basic 2.0, a node assets basic. Takes you right there. There's only 2 nodes anyways, so not much happening. Yeah, so very cool. And again, at some point, this old page will be gone, but it'll still be up for the time being. Once it's gone, you know where to find a ticket nudge. All right, FMA settings. With this FMA settings here in the admin panel, we have this new switch at the bottom here, parts tracking code uniqueness check. When you turn it on, you have 2 options here. Validation tracking code must be unique across FMA parts, and warning message if the entered tracking code is not unique. So what does that mean? That means when the engineer is inputting tracking codes in the FMA app, if you have this switch turned on and you have the project selected and that ticket he's checking with that part is within this project, it's going to have these validations checked. If you have the project here and it's checked and it finds unique code, you're not going to be able to save with that unique code. You have to have a unique code there. If you have this one on, it's just a warning. Hey, warning, this is not a unique code, but you can still save it if you want, just warning you. If you have it in both, we'll throw the warning and we'll throw the lock-in, so you can't save it. So that'll be the same. You won't be able to do it, but we'll warn you and we'll tell you can't save it. There's more details in the manual. I think it saves the last 200 unique codes or so. So something like that. I have an example here. I don't have any live example, but I do have an example of what it looked like here in Android. So I have to hit a code that's matching another code in the history of these FMA or engineer. They'll see a warning here, and same for iOS. They'll see a warning here. All right, parts handling. In general, parts handling has been updated within the FMA with a clear workflow or a clear flow chart. So here we have the default parts publishing process for parts. So when a ticket gets published with parts to the FMA, all parts except canceled and published to the FMA, unpublished or report ticket. All parts except those the engineer received are removed from the FMA. Engineer returns the part and the part is returned, and after it's returned, it's removed after 72 hours. If that ticket is then handed over to another engineer, so published to another engineer, all parts are removed from the first engineer, all parts except canceled or prior return published to the second engineer. So no parts will get lost stuck with different engineers or stuck in the FMA and this and that. So we improved the default process. We've also introduced a new process, which is status-based driven lifecycle of the parts. And by status, I mean these here. So we have canceled in shipment, not received, ordered, out of stock, received, recommended, wait for replenishment, and you can, of course, request more through Fieldcode support. with your descriptions and what should happen with these parts. And how does that work? This works similar to the first one, except it's more of a whitelist and blacklist. So based off of the status and what you want to happen in this, what you tell Fieldcode support, we will add to the whitelist or the blacklist, and we'll decide, we'll be able to have the workflow decide based off the part status where it ends up. If it's in the whitelist, it'll get pushed. If it's in a blacklist, it'll do something else. So it's a more of a fine-tuned parts strategy, if you so wish. But again, you'll have to contact Fieldcode support to make that happen. All right, Fieldcode Plus. Permissions. We had Fieldcode Plus permissions here before, but they're always grayed out. That's no longer the case. So if you're an enterprise or business customer, all the Fieldcode Plus permissions are now live and active. So now you are free to decide who has access and who doesn't have access to all your Fieldcode Plus features. So yeah, feel free to play with your permissions and assign accordingly. And as well, we've added some, I always forget where to check here. We added some new fields for forms. They're available for all forms. However, you don't need them for the basic forms, and it's basically the audit information. Who was it created by? When was it created? Who last modified it? And what time was it last modified? So these fields are now available for your custom forms. So here you have, right here. So we have last modified, created by, and created at. So we have these new fields here. You can attach them to your custom forms, and then you can see who has adjusted a custom form and when, and all that here. So let's take a look. So you can see here, this was created on the 14th of April, created by myself, and last modified on the 30th of June by myself. You can also assign them when creating objects. You can also assign different key fields, or you can assign them as key fields to relational objects as well. So you can then trace when changes were made to relational objects, so on and so forth. Yeah, so the audit fields are now available for forms. All right, some notable bug fixes. On-call duty comments were not showing. That's no longer the case. On-call duty comments will always show now in the tooltip and on the row here itself. Skills are now displayed alphabetically. So that's nice to have. Workflow scripts, there was a funny issue with workflow scripts being grayed out at different zoom levels. So when you were going to create it here and you were at a different zoom level, it was grayed out and you couldn't input any text there. It's a very strange issue, but as you can see, it's no longer the case. You can be at any zoom level and enter your workflow scripts as needed. We have fixed an issue with the waiting duration and SLA profile disabled. What does that mean? For projects, you have here the call log settings, and you have this enable wait duration. And if you had this off, it was supposed to use calendar times. It wasn't the case. It was still using the business times or the business hours from the SLA profiles. That's no longer the case. If you have it off, it will use calendar hours. If you have it on, it's going to use the business hours from the SLA profile. So that has been fixed. We also fixed the issue with when you're creating custom fields with lists and dynamic lists, it now grabs the right fields. It was grabbing the wrong fields from dynamic lists here. So now it's grabbing whatever list you have, it's grabbing only the fields from the list that you're selecting, the related list. And finally, we fixed an issue in Partner Portal where the time zone was incorrect. It was using the device time zone and not the ticket time zone, which was causing issues when trying to set fixed times based off of the part duration, the part storage time, and there was issues with time zones, especially with such large time zones from the other side of the world, 7 hours difference. It was It wasn't possible. So we fixed that so the time zone is correct in Partner Portal. It's using the ticket time zone and not the device time zone. So that is all I have for you for the release from 26 June. Thank you very much.